Aloha, I'm State Representative Cindy Evans, and thank you for joining me for my show, Now What? And today I have Representative Cynthia Thielen with me, and we met in the hall one day here at the state capitol, and we were talking story, and I said to her, hey, you know, what do you think about us sharing our thoughts on what happened to both of us in the 1970s and affirmative action and what's happened with women in the workplace? And she agreed to meet with me and talk about it, so I think we're going to have an interesting half hour to talk about us as women in the workplace. And with that, I want to introduce you to Representative Cynthia Thielen. Hi, Cynthia.
Hello there. Aloha. I'm Representative Cynthia Thielen, and I represent Kailua, Kaneohe Bay Drive area. It's wonderful being here with you, Cindy, and I certainly can think back to those days in the 70s. I go back even a little bit earlier. I was raised by a single mother. I did want to go to college. College was very important to her. And when I was accepted at Stanford University, I set off thinking, okay, what is my future there? Primarily, we were encouraged to be in supportive kind of roles rather than being out there being engineers, doctors, lawyers, anything of that sort. So I set off for Stanford and learned something very interesting. At that point, because of the Korean War and the draft, Stanford had two grade point averages, one for women and one for men. And the reason they had two, the women were getting the top grades, which were making the men lower on the totem pole, and they were being subject to being drafted. So this was taking place in the 50s at Stanford University. I didn't put two and two together. I went for my first year, dropped out, was married, had 4 children, had made a promise to my mother, who had since died from cancer, and I made a promise to her that I would go back and finish college. So I finished up at University of Hawaii and then went to law school. But as I told my children, I must have been a slow learner. It took me 20 years to graduate from college.
That's funny. You know, your story, it's fascinating to me because you got into college.
Right.
How did that happen? Because that must not have been that easy, or was it?
Studied hard and was very motivated, but without having role models in the 50s. Our role models were all at home. We had Betty Crocker writing cookbooks. We had maybe movie stars, and go back and look at the 50s movies and see what the role for women was. Right. So it was much more, and then we had suburbia. Everyone had moved on out to suburbia. You didn't have your, we were all sort of isolated in these suburban homes, and you didn't have your community and support community. It was more like you stayed home, had children, drove carpools, did volunteer work, but that was it. And the workforce was primarily made up of men, and women were in the supporting role.
Right, the traditional roles of nurses or secretaries.
Right.
Or interesting, I have to ask this because it just popped into my mind. Did you always wear dresses and no pants in those days?
No.
Because I'm thinking, you know, I remember, you know, I remember my grandparents and my mother, they always wore dresses. They never wore pantsuits when I was growing up.
I was usually in shorts and barefoot.
Okay.
It was Southern California, a little bit different than here, but still the very same informality and just, very informal.
Good.
Shorts
that's
or
great.
barefoot all the time.
That's great. Well, it sounds like a great place to go to school, actually.
Well, and Stanford was absolutely wonderful. I just didn't quite pull it together there. And then, of course, I was very much in love with Mickey, so I dropped out of college, told my mother that. She was very dismayed, and that's when I made the promise to her that I will graduate. And I wish she had been alive to see that, and then to see me going on to law school and becoming a lawyer, which is another another interesting situation. When I graduated from law school, there was one female partner in a law firm downtown, and she was from England. And for the most part, law firms downtown were not hiring women to be on a partnership track. Well, the way that we fixed that, the women were the top students. So if the law firms wanted to hire someone that graduated first, second, third in her class, they had to hire women. So we earned our way into that. And then, of course, now it's everything is very fair, I believe, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in operations like Legal Aid Society of Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
any of your government work, there may be a few bastions that are holdouts, but I can remember in the 70s a law partner bragging to me that his firm didn't hire women. And I thought that's something to be proud of. I mean, a lot of your clients are female. Mm-hmm. They may prefer working with a woman.
Mm-hmm. So what year did you graduate from law school?
78 in December. I was kind of between the two classes, 78 and 79. Mm-hmm. And our 79 class started the Ete Bowl, where we played football against the women medical school students. And that tradition is still going on. I can remember I made a touchback. You know, this is going to show my ignorance about football, but I tagged Susan Heftel in her end zone, and so got something like 3 points for our team. And anyone that's a football fan, please excuse me. I'm not that knowledgeable, but boy, I played hard and I trained hard. We had coaches, all the male students were our coaches, and they wouldn't let us slack off.
So there was a time, and I remember, where we've transitioned to where women now can have more sports.
Oh, absolutely.
In school, and Patsy Mink, who was our U.S. Congresswoman, really helped.
Oh, absolutely.
With getting equality for women to have sports in schools.
And then remember Donna Thompson at University of Hawaii and all of her work and what she did. And so we've made wonderful progress, not totally, but it's such a difference from when we both were growing up and what it is now. I remember another funny story. Well, it's not funny. I applied for a credit card, and this is when credit cards were just kind of coming out. And I thought, well, it'll be easier to buy gas for the station wagons, so I'll get a credit card. And I was denied. And then I read somewhere that they weren't giving credit cards to women. You had to get the husband to sign on or to get the credit card and ask for one in your name. So my our maiden name was Henry. I come down from Patrick Henry, the American patriot and a direct descendant of his. So I thought, okay, I'll go in and apply for a credit card under C. Henry Thielen. A week later, boom, I had it. And I used it for decades, but they always thought I was a man.
There is a way, isn't there?
Well, but isn't it wrong to have to do that?
It's very wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so now they give out too many credit cards, and people are having the reverse problem. But back then, you had to ask permission of a husband to be able to get things like that. Interesting. And I don't know, I probably haven't even sat down and talked with my children about these stories, because they probably, actually I should talk to the granddaughters when I drive them home in carpool.